Morning in progress.
All right, good morning, gentlemen. Yeah, to the hundreds here in the hundreds here in person, and the Yahoo fans, and to the thousands across the world. Listen. All right, so yesterday we had a case. We were trying to figure out this puzzle, this line. Oh, good question. So today's, I believe, Daf Samach Vav, and we left off on Samach Hey Amud Beis. So I'm just trying to look back to see where this brisa was. Right. Well, right before that, but I want to introduce it. Tanrabanan. No. All right, got it. All right. So we had a brisa, maybe five or maybe I don't know, eight or nine lines from the bottom. So the brisa says you have a gutter. Okay. Now, if you hollowed it out first and then attached it to the ground, it's considered to be a kli. And then we have another case that said if you attach that, but if you attach it to the ground first and then you hollow it out, so it was never a kli before it was attached to the ground, it's considered to be like the ground. So that was the brice that we said. All right. This is very important because we're going to have two more cases to try and figure out who the brice was like. Then we'll get to the Mishnah. Then we'll wish everyone a good Shabbos. But until then, we have to remember that case. If it's a kli first and then attached to the ground, says that brisa, that case, basically there's a possible walk of Mayim Shuvim. There's a possible. So one, if it's a kli first and you attach it to the ground, still kli. But if you attach it to the ground and make it into a kli, it's considered to be attached to the ground. So he said it's not Rabbi Eliezer, not Rabbanan. So which Rabbi Eliezer is Rabbanan? So we want to say with our Mishnah, we say we deflected that. Maybe there was another reason why our Mishnah is, said that way, i.e., because maybe a person sells something generously. So we say 3 lines from the bottom. The Elo Rabbi Eliezer Tikiveres Divayidim. Maybe it's the case of Rabbi Eliezer it has to do with the beehive. And what was that brice or that Mishnah? The Tanah we learned in the Mishnah. Because it says, right, we're trying to figure out the statement, right? Lo Rabbi Eliezer, below Rabbanan. So we want to figure out which Rabbi Eliezer you're referring to. There's not like that, this brisa of mikvah with gutters is not like. So he said, the Mishnah of the beehives. So a beehive now is just like the ground. It's attached to the ground, and therefore it's attached to the earth, and therefore, I guess, to the tree, which is attached to the ground, right? So that's my guess, right? So he said, Harei Kikarka. That's considered to be like the ground. It's attached there.
Therefore, if you buy something, you can be included in it. Is that the idea?
So let's see what's an app. Yeah, we can carry. But Kaisel Prusbal, the first one was a beehive. So we know that Prusbal, they're normally by Shemitah. So we have different halachas when it comes to Prusbal for it to not to be canceled. But in other words, we basically give our loan over to the basin. But so it usually has to do with a person who owns land. A person who owns land, so therefore the collateral is still in existence, i.e., the land. So that's the beehive considered to be land because it's so much to the point that you can write a prusbal on it. And also the eina mekabel is tuma. It's not mekabel tuma. Why? Something to attach to the ground is not a kli. Is not attached to the ground. Excuse me. It's not mekabel tuma. Ve'eina mekabel tuma bim chayma. The haroid the mimena b'shabbos chayv. And one who goes ahead and takes out bees, honey. Excuse me. From the beehive, takes out of the beehive, is considered to be extracting something which is gedulei karka, which is similar to being kaitzer. I believe it's being, going ahead and harvesting. I'm harvesting honey, so that's deraisa because that's attached to the ground. This is all called Rabbi Eliezer. No, it's not considered to be a karka. It's considered to be like basically a movable object, i.e., like a cleat. And therefore, if any place you know that Prusbal can't write a Prusbal on it. Makabel is Tuma bim Kaima. And then is Makabel Tuma. The one who goes and extracts honey from it on Shabbos is Pater. Such a person, as a person as is Pater knows is considered to be a Kli. So maybe it's this Rabbi Eliezer. So maybe this was the Rabbi Eliezer saying that our case differentiated whether it was made first or not. And over here, right? So over here, right? It seems to say that Rebbe Eliezer would say that this is considered to be attached to the ground. But earlier we said if it was a gutter then attached to the ground is considered to that brisa is considered to be still a kli, right? And therefore, if this beehive was a beehive first and it came and then it was attached afterwards, right? It's not what's it called? It loses according to this Mishnah, it loses its status as a kli.
So
Gemara says
the brisa in this Mishnah
so. We're trying to say
are not congruent.
correct, and that's because we're trying to understand the statement, right? We're trying to understand the simple statement of when we said money. Who's the author of that brisa?
Right.
Lo Rebbe Eliezer, lo Rabbanan. Now we're trying to figure out that. So maybe this is the one that doesn't stem. The rest says no. Maybe it's different. Maybe it could be Rebbe Eliezer, but over here Rebbe Eliezer is a different reason when it comes to beehives. Why? Hustle because about Rebbe Eliezer. Tama. Rebbe Eliezer. My time Rebbe Eliezer. What's the reason Rebbe Eliezer says that a beehive is like the earth? The pasuk says Vayitbo Oisa Biyaras Hadvash. It says over there. And I think this Yonasan. Yonasan. He went ahead and he dipped it in. So he also Devash, right? The forest of the honey. The Mayar had Talishan of Shabbos Kai just like when one goes out and extracts. Right, or takes from a yar, from a forest, i.e., things growing from the ground. Is chayv chatas and Shabbos av devash. So to devash already been a Shabbos chayv chatas. So to a beehive must be the same thing, and therefore a beehive must be like karka, and therefore it's karka regarding other matters. So maybe it's a special din in beehives. So don't compare it to the case of the gutter. So Ella, let's learn another case. Okay, attempt number 3. We actually had attempt number 2. Yeah, one was yesterday. That was 2. Now attempt number 3. Ella Rabbi Eliezer did daf. Let's say Rabbi Eliezer has to do with a board. A baker's board. Did tonight we're going to this ourselves. Daf shel nachtaymen shekava b'kaisel, a board, right, of bakers that was set into the wall. Rabbi Eliezer metaher, Chaim metamen. Rabbi Eliezer says it's tahor. It's considered to be part of the wall, part of the ground. In the makabel tumba. Chachamim say it's metame. It's still a kli. So now this mission over here does not differentiate whether if first it was planed or made into a kli, then attached to the wall, or attached to the wall, and then it was planed, and then it became doesn't differentiate. Attached to the wall, all cases, it's all cases according to Eliezer, it's Torah, it's part of the wall, and according to Chachamim, it's metame. So you see, it is different than the case of the mikvah with the gutter. We said, well, it makes a difference. Well, did you go ahead and attach it first, then hollow it out, or did you hollow it out first and then attach it? So the rest is Rabbi Eliezer. So if it's a opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, afilu chakul v'sayv kabul. So if it's a Rabbi Eliezer in the case over there by the mikvah, right? He should say even if you hollowed it out and made it into a gutter, a kli, but then you attach it to the ground, it should be attached to the ground, just in the case of the board. And he Rabbanan, and if it's Rabbanan, afilu kavu, even if you attach to the ground and then hollow it out, but the mice is hollowed out, it should be considered to be a kli. It should be possible. It should make the water mine shuvim. Kagunami. So Gemara says Li'elam Rabbi Eliezer. Maybe it's really you can say it's opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. So if it's opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, v'shani pshutik liyetz. So why is the case of the board? Even though, let's say, it was made into a board first and then attached to the wall, we'll say it's tar, lose the status as kli. The tumah derabanan, because it's only tumah derabanan. So therefore, since it's not metal, it's only tumah derabanan. We're going to go ahead and say, you know what? We're not going to be so machmer. It's attached to the wall, even though it was a kli before. It loses its status because it was only matami midirabanan. So therefore, we say it's like karkas ain't makabel tumah.
People
will adhere to it, right? So in other words, but over here they saw that it was not severe enough for us to go ahead and make the case. The Gemara says miklal, the shiva deraisa. So you didn't tell me, but the case over there by the mikvah was ma'im shuvim was only deraisa. V'ha kaimelon derabanan, right? We already establish that ma'im shuvim is midrabanan. In other words, once you have 40 sub. Right, so you need 40 saws. So any water that goes in doesn't have to, it could be from drawn water, right? You can add it from your sink, right? The once you have the water that was natural water that flowed in. So, but the issue is, so let's say you want to take out some of the water and leave it at 40, and then you add mayim shuvim. So does it do it now? So mayim shuvim in that case is midrabanan. We do not allow you to go ahead and do that. In other words, you have, even though midraisa we says you have to have 40. So even if once I have 40, if I add some and take out, it should be no problem. I'm shuvim, I could add all day and take out. So midrabanan, then that is what we're going to. But that's only midrabanan. So in the case of the gutter, it's only midrabanan. So if it's midrabanan, and we're saying, okay, we're more making midrabanan, why should we say it's tameh in the case of where it was a kli first and then put down? Maybe we should be making in such a case. And furthermore, so even the case of the board, even if it was metal, right? Even in the Doraisa, it's still Rabbi Eliezer would say it's always tahor. It always loses its status of being makabel tuma, right? So the Gemara says, really, all right, turn the page. So he said, we already did. So he says, machloikas, liyelim rabbanim. Maybe he says rabbanim. V'shani shiva, maybe he say shiva dirabbanim. I jumped the line before, right? Right? We established, so we say, right, so Vishani Yeshiva Derabanan. We say it's only Derabanan, and therefore, therefore Midrabanan. So therefore, that's the reason why they say Tahor in that case over there. So the Gemara says, Ihachi, Afilu Chachul V'Sed Kavanami. You should even if it was hollowed out, in other words, it was hollowed out first, and then it was put in the ground. You should still say that according to Rabbanan, according to that case. Now in that case, it's only midrabanan. It should not be a kli. So Gemara says no. Shani Hasan diika taras kli alav b'talish. So he says no. Since lamaisa, it was a kli before. So therefore, we don't want to go ahead and make it too similar to a regular case of a kli. And therefore, since this is similar to a case of, let's say, it wasn't attached to the ground, and people might get confused, so therefore we say if it was made into a kli that put down, yes, einachinami, right, it's only halach midrabanan. But this case is similar to people just having, a kli that was not attached to the ground. We'll think they'll be okay. The only reason why this is okay is because we're not geyser in this case. So therefore, we'll make a decree. In other words, we'll say that if it was in the kli first and then attached to the ground, it is metamayit. And by Rav Yosef, make Yeshamim shechishev aleim la'adiach es ha'yitztrublim. So now, new case. We mentioned what is included. How do we get on this? What was included in a sale? What was not? So we had this mill ring, I guess that was used by the mill that was attached to the ground. So we say that's like similar to the ground, and that's included in a sale. So the halacha is, right, in order for things to be susceptible to tuma, right, foods, it has to be come in contact with one of the 7 different liquids, one of which is water, but it has to be done with the consent of the of the what's it called of the owner. So the water, in other words, if a guy leaves something out that he wants it to rain, so then that water is now able to go ahead and be, makes things susceptible to tumah, but not the water that grows on land. In other words, just because it rains on the ground, something attached to the ground, that water, right, is not water that he put there. In other words, because that was that water that he used, because that was something attached to the ground, but only if it was used, let's say, to wash. Let's say he wanted to put out something that was detached, for the rain to come, right? But it was detached, so the rain would work in that. So what about a case of the water? So he says, "Oh, very good. I'm not gonna cover my my mill ring because I want the water to go ahead and clean it." Now, is this water considered to be water? Right. So is this right? Well, exactly right. So is this water considered to be something that was used legabe karka? In other words, is the stroblin part of the land, or is it considered to be metaltalin in this aspect? And therefore, imahul is right. Could it go ahead and be make something potentially or something mekabel tuma? Mahul is right. So leave the Rabbi Yezer, according to Rabbi Yezer, who says anything attached to the ground is considered like the ground. Certainly, it's not a question there, because certainly this is considered to be like the ground, and it's no different than when it rains, and that water is not used. What are we referring to? We're referring to, according to Rabbanan, to Amri Eina Kakarka. When they say it's not like the karka, but in this case, is it b'chiyutan or not? What is the halacha there? Gemara leaves it as a takeover. And
The big question, the bigger question is about the seats. The seats aren't.
Well,
right?
Right. The seeds are not, but you need to go ahead and place and use water, right?
Some of us must.
Right. Right. And therefore, so the question really is this water?
Is it Laratzon if it's falling on something that's Muslim?
Right. Is that considered to be the Ratzon or not? If this item, right, this Stroblin, is that considered to be a Ratzon of him or not? You know, a Ratzon of something which is Karka or not?
Mashivit, does it count?
Right, because it wouldn't count if it was crops. And it would count if he left out a bowl, right? A bowl out there. The question is, what about this? Right, not. So finally, Zutil in the Hardia. So he said. So he says in the case of here, to those. So in the Hardia he said, "Ki asya ha'isa lekamech." Right, when the women come before you in order to agava yisur nechse, right, to go ahead and collect. So we saw this earlier, I think in the previous Masechtas, I think it was in Subas. So that a father dies and he leaves over children and he goes to the Yarshin. However, 10% goes towards the dowry of the for the daughter, right? So if he has 10 daughters, then we said there goes everything, right? But so 10% goes to dowry. So what is collected from the estate? It's not cash, not movable objects. It's it's from the estate. So he says, "Afilu mitzrobe derechai." Even from the millstone, from those mill rings, those are also considered to be attached to the ground, and therefore those assets are included in order to to get the 10%. I feel Mishabi the Rechaim and Rav Ashi. Not only that, Kiavina be Rav Kahana, Aglira Filo Me'alam at the Bati. Right, you can go ahead and even take from the what's it called, from the rent of that I guess the receivables. Right, for the houses that were owned by the fathers. So it's not just not even attached to the ground, but even something which is related to ground-related things, such as rental payments. Those are included and could be collected by the daughter for her dowry. We'll stop at this Mishnah. Everyone have a wonderful Shabbos. This is